Hello gamers and welcome back to a surprise buff breakdown. It's already got some buffs already for 2026, but now a bit later during the Chaldea Floraria event, we got a buff to the OG Tomoe Gozen Archer, a skill buff in that. She's only ever received an MP buff before, so them now buffing a skill is pretty cool, because I think she definitely was not in like an amazing spot. So I'm pretty happy to see her buffed, especially because she's a permanent as well. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. So we have a buff for her second skill. So previously on a 6-turn cooldown, she herself got 600% star absorb for 3 turns on activation, and then also 50% crit star generation rate for 3 turns for the entire party actually. Pretty underwhelming skill. The star generation for herself was never that strong because her hit counts are pretty whatever, and her deck is also double arts, and arts obviously doesn't generate that many stars to begin with, and her MP is a single target one hit buster MP. So for herself, this buff was always kind of like very weird. It can help if you're supports or if you're running double DPS. If they have good hit counts, they can maybe dish out more stars, but yeah, that effect was always kind of like weird. The star gather rate can be good. She is an archer who already has a fairly good base absorb, so that's why it's only 3 digits instead of 4. But when you have this on, you can definitely make her crit easily. Granted, you have the stars, okay? Because, again, she herself doesn't really generate any stars. But yeah, you could at least, if you do get stars, they should easily land on her with this. But yeah, that's all it did on a 6-turn cooldown. So it was pretty underwhelming in my opinion, even for a permanent 4-star in this day and age. So let's see what they did. So everything I just listed remains unchanged, unfortunately. Nothing changes there, but I guess it's okay anyway. Maybe the cooldown could have come down, but we have 2 new lines at least. So now she actually gets 50% crit damage for 3 turns for herself, and also gets a 30% MP battery. So those are the 2 new lines they added, and nothing else was changed. Now this is a great skill. It's good. The star generation buff is still kind of weird, but one thing I always criticize, if you go back into some of the tier lists, I always criticize Tomoe that like she can crit, but the problem is she can't really get stars, nor does she have crit damage in her kit. So while she could land some crits, they never really did insane damage unless you had good uptime from your like supports like Koyan or something, for instance. So now she actually has crit damage. Imagine that, because again, I believe the only bad thing she had for crit damage was the 10% from her archer passive, which was barely anything at all. So now having access to up to 60% counting the passive is much better, and both the uptimes are matched with the new crit damage and the existing star gather rate. So that's a great combo. And the battery can help because while her gains were not atrociously bad, they were nothing to sneeze at either. So having 0% battery or 0 gauge whatsoever in her kit, I feel like was a bit, you know, unusual. Granted, she is an old servant, so back then not everyone always came with batteries. It's kind of a standard nowadays that servants have some kind of battery in their kit at least. So it's nice to see these old servants also receive some love in that front. And I'm glad they actually slapped the 30% instead of like an awkward 20%, because this is much easier to work with. Of course, it works way better with, you know, your battery appends or some AoE 20s that are much more common still than AoE 30s, etc, etc. So a 30 is pretty cool. Maybe even could see some farm use for all the huge Tomoe enthusiasts out there, but I feel like for regular people, they won't really use her for farming at all. But hey, her boss potential definitely went up. The only thing I would still like to see is buffs to her other 2 skills. They're not amazingly strong. Maybe add like a star bomb to one of them, maybe the first skill, since it's full offense anyway. Could be cool to combo with this new crit damage as well. So she's still not without issues, but certainly in a much more more comfortable spot right now. So yay for Tomoe. Now again, I'm not really gonna pull out the really old tier list from last year. And again, if you missed the announcement of my gacha video, which I don't blame you if you did, that was not a very fun watch. I am doing tier lists again this year. I will not start them this week yet, but chances are next week already the first one might drop. We're gonna have some changes to the format, but don't worry, they're still gonna be very long, I'm sure. And I'm probably still gonna have some familiar faces as my co-host once again. But yeah, if you enjoyed this brief buff breakdown, do me a solid and press the thumbs up button on this video. It really helps out. And do subscribe not to miss out on any future buffs, news, also those aforementioned tier lists. They're gonna be dropping out weekly again. That is the plan for many months. And yeah, it's gonna be pretty crazy. Shout out to my patrons on the screen right now. Thank you for supporting my channel, especially in these dire times, because man, revenue is at an all-time low. So I'm really trying my best to get you guys more content whenever I can. And you know, this was a nice opportunity to do another video. With that, have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.